like we've already got some folks on here. I'm going to try to speak a little with a little more volume because I'm putting the camera back a ways so that you can see the whiteboard here. All right. Um, so at any rate, I said I did that video last night because I'm going to be busy starting later this afternoon on into the evening and through the weekend. That doesn't mean I won't come on if something of some uh, importance comes up that I should feel like I should comment on. Hello, everyone, as you come in. But as far as that long class last night, I knew I wouldn't be able to do that tonight. But I do, hello, everyone, again, as you come in. I did want to cover one more aspect that I kind of hinted on last night, but I felt like we had gone long enough, number one. And number two, it's my working method. In the military, that's where I learned to teach. And one of the things I learned to do was you tell your students what you're going to teach them. You tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, right? So you tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. So this kind of falls into that. It's kind of a of a slight variation of the Socratic method because, of course, being on YouTube and being just spouting my information, I'm really not being able to get the feedback from you, even with the chat that I would like to have. So it's kind of a modified Socratic method. Okay. Also, you'll notice I'm doing it here. Uh, when I go down and I use even studio lighting sometimes, I don't know what it is with YouTube because when I'm looking at the picture on my phone, I'm using my phone here again, not a regular camera. Uh, when I look at that, the color looked fine last night as I was working and doing the live stream. And then when I check the upload later, there's a lighting problem and everything looks yellow again. So I'm not even sure that the problem that I'm having is because of what's happening at the moment that I'm doing it. Hello, Roosevelt. I'm beginning to think it's something with the processing up the line in YouTube. I could be mistaken, but I don't quite understand. So I don't know how the color is in this, Roosevelt. Can you tell me if this looks natural or does it have that yellow tint like last night? Does it look more natural today? It looks good? Yeah, well then it must be the lighting. There must be maybe I've got a bad filament in one of because they're high powered lights. They're 500 watts. So maybe I've got a bad filament that's doing something. I don't know. But anyway, it looked like I had jaundice again last night. So that was, again, I'm not really vain, but it aggravates me because I think it bothers the audience a little bit, the viewers. So okay, I wanted to cover one last thing, and I don't look like this is going to. It looks a little foggy here. It's because of I'm using natural light, and so we're getting a lot of reflection, around that. But that should be okay. You should still be able to see what's going on. The important thing is if you can hear me and see me. That's the important thing. If the sound is good, I'm trying to keep my voice volume up so that it makes it to the microphone. If that's working and you can see what's happening here, I think we're good, okay? All right. So last night we talked about the information about us being a family and that God's family is what he's concerned with, and that has to do with the real meaning of the house of the Lord, okay? I'm just giving you a real quick overview of what we said last night. Uh, and I talked a lot about the mountain. Of course, it was the Isaiah and the Micah scriptures. The mountain of the Lord, in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the tops of the mountains. And we explained that had to do with the family and the magnificence of that family amongst all the other families, all the other mountains. Okay? That's what that was about. So I felt, though, that this information that I'm going to show you now, this is getting really on the esoteric side in the pardes of the Hebrew when you break it down and you're getting to the esoteric mystical level of understanding the Hebrew. This isn't the literal storytelling or even the allegorical. This is the mystical section of that discipline. It's really a discipline because the Hebrew language has such an amazing character to it, such an amazing quality that you can get these other meanings. And we're going to go over these this morning real quick because I think you need to see this, okay? Obviously, I'm not hanging this down. I don't want to get too much of a reflection on there, but I think you can see that. Okay, maybe it was better where it was. Maybe I should leave it there. I think I will. I think that's actually better. Okay, let me point this out to you and we'll discuss just a little bit. So this is basically part two. It's a follow-up to last night. For those of you who are interested, those who just want political information, it looks better back there. Okay. Those of you who want political or military information, what's going on in Afghanistan, which is horrible, but they're doing horrible things to us here. I'm not going to talk about that today. Okay. I mean, I'd really like to talk about some of that, but I think that we need some of this spiritual understanding because it's been hidden from us for so long. There's no reason to. Okay. So I wanted to get back to the concept of the mountain because that was a really important part of Isaiah chapter 2 and of course Micah chapter 4, right? The whole idea of the mountain of the Lord's house in the top of the mountains, but the mountain of the Lord's house is really important. In other words, the mountain of the family, right? What is this mountain of the family? What are we talking about? I want you to see something in the Hebrew because this is very fascinating. In Hebrew, all words are formed off of basic 2 and 3 letter roots. And any word that is formed with those roots have a connection to all the other words in that root, okay? In English, we have, for instance, we have words that are similar. In other words, they kind of mean the same thing. And I have written down here that there are other words like, if you're going to say pregnant, another word that we could use is expectant, right? An expectant mother, a pregnant mother. You see, we do have other words that describe things that we're trying to say. And we'll pick those words depending upon the context of what we're writing and on maybe some artistic value. Maybe it's poetry. Maybe we want it to rhyme or whatever. You get the idea. Well, Hebrew has those same characteristics, but even much more rich. And the word, as I explained last night for mountain, is har, this right here. And it's based on the root HR. It's actually one of its own roots, okay? So here we have it. Har, mountain, is the hay and the resh. Poetically, there's another form of that, which I hinted to last night, and it's harar, which is spelled like this. This is hay, resh, resh. The regular har is hay, resh, but then you have harar, which is hay, resh, resh. You can use those interchangeably, okay? Just like you could use pregnant and expectant interchangeably to some extent, okay? So that's kind of the idea. But what I want you to home in on here is a root that's in another word that has to do with mountain. You see this little graph I have here, this little sketch? A mountain, is raised up from the horizon. It's high. That's kind of, I could have made a point and a peak and all that, but I want you to get the idea. That's the mountain, okay? The word hurrah, which has the root hey, resh, har, okay, is related to mountain. Why? And this is why I wanted to bring this up. Because I talked about the mountain of the Lord's house is established in the tops of the mountains and that the house of the Lord is his family. What is this mountain? Not just the magnificence of it. There we go. I need a little drink here. My mouth's dry. Hold on a second. Not only the majesty of it, but there's a hidden meaning in there as well. Actually, 2 of them. Hurrah actually means pregnant. So the description of a woman that's pregnant as being like a mountain has significance in both Isaiah 2:2 and Micah 4:1. Do you see that? So the mountain is high. What happens to a woman's stomach, her abdomen, as the baby develops? She develops a mountain in her stomach, a rising, a majesty, a magnificence. Magnificence, there we go. And that's why I drew this. This isn't a llama. This was to show you that if you tip this horizontal, you would have the mountain. So in the Hebraic way of thinking, a woman's pregnancy is like a mountain. And that's why you have the word hara. Now, there are other words for pregnancy, conception. Yes, there are. Just like I explained a few minutes ago, in English we have the word pregnant and expectant as an example, describing the same thing. So there are other words, but the prophets chose the word that fit not only with their poetic expression, that they're trying to make it flow, but their prophetic expression to give meaning where you may not see it otherwise. But you have to understand it. So when the ancients read this, Isaiah 2:2 and Micah 4:1, they understood that God wasn't talking about a stone temple. He was talking about his family and the woman carrying her mountain in her abdomen that carried her family. Do you see that? Do you understand what I'm telling you? So Hara has to do with the mountain of the Lord's house. In other words, the pregnancy, the offspring coming through the woman. But there's something else too. And this is why this is so incredible. Jesus said, when he was asked, what will be the sign of his coming, of the end times? And what did he say? The very first thing out of his mouth was, see that ye be not deceived. That was the number one thing he said. Not that you need to prepare, not that you need to go out and get your weapons, not that that isn't a good thing, not that you don't need to build, your little refuge out in the countryside. What was the number one thing he said? Be not deceived. Well, guess what? The mountain has another meaning to it for his posterity, for his family. The meaning of hara also means to conceive, be pregnant, but another kind of conceive. In other words, the process of thinking, planning, understanding, conception of ideas, being able to reason, to not be deceived. The remnant of God's people are a remnant because they are not deceived. So in Isaiah 2:2 and Micah 4:1, not only is he saying his family is magnificent, and it's going to be more magnificent than all the other families around the tops of the mountains. It will be the mountain of the Lord's house established in the tops of the mountains amongst the best. And it will be the best, but that they will have the ability to think and to conceive not just children, but to conceive ideas, thoughts, test things out, test the spirits. That they will not be deceived. That they will see that what the fruits are is how they judge. By the fruits you will know them, and you will not be deceived. What does the other scripture say? That what happens is that if it were possible, it would deceive, that the evil would deceive the very elect, if it were possible. Well, is it possible? There's a limit to it, because God has made sure that his family has the ability to avoid the deception. So using family for the Lord's house, that's his family, the Lord's family, goes along with the concept of the remnant. that they shall be his sons and his daughters, and indeed already are his sons and daughters, and that they're in this mortal probation so that they can experience good and evil at ground level. But God's family will see through the delusions and the deceptions, because that's what the root word of har and hara is. So I wanted to cover that today. I don't know if what I'm telling you will really sink in. You might have to listen to this again. But let me just recap it one more time. In Isaiah and in Micah, in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the tops of the mountains. Rephrasing it to our new understanding, not to the understanding that the world's given, but the understanding that you can get out of the basic Hebrew using these different methods of breaking it down, is that in the last days, the magnificence of the Lord's family will be established high above all of the other families. And why? Another method, another message in it, that in the last days, those who will not be deceived because they can think will actually be the ones who come out on top. Some people are saying they couldn't see the writing on it. I can't tilt it up too far because the reflection from the windows blocks it out. But there it is. You can look these words up if you like. I think I've got the numbers for them. Let's see, the word har is word 2022 in Strong's Concordance, and if you have a Gesenius, then you can go look it up in Gesenius, and you'll see everything here that I'm telling you. The word harar, which is another form of har or mountain, it's the poetic form, is word 2042 in Strong's, in the Hebrew side, not the Greek. And then this word hara, you really don't find it in Strong's because Strong didn't know what to make of it. At least I didn't notice it there. Where I actually looked it up was in the Gesenius, the Hebrew lexicon, not Strong's cross-reference, but the Hebrew lexicon. And that's where you'd have to go. And in my Gesenius, it's on page what event there. I had to number the pages differently. The Roman numerals are too hard to figure out. Sometimes I renumbered the pages of my Gesenius, but it's under the hey resh hey. When you look it up in Gesenius, you'll go to the section for the letter hey. You'll go to the resh, and then you'll look for the next in line, which would be hey. So you'll be looking for just this hey resh hey, and what it means is conception, both in the idea of pregnancy, but more importantly, to be able to conceive, to think, to reason, to discern, and not be deceived. Isn't that something? So you really are a remnant. You hear people say, if you can hear this, you are the resistance. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to it. So keep a hold of this. Remember, a mountain and a pregnant woman in God's in the Hebraic eye, in the Hebraic understanding, is similar because of the root. The mountain in her abdomen is the Lord's mountain, the magnificence of his house, as Isaiah and Micah explain. Okay, well, I got to get ready for the rest of the things this weekend. As I was saying, we're having a little get together, a little party, and that's why I can't be on tonight. But that doesn't mean if something breaks somewhere, I can't come on for a few minutes. I just can't spend the hour and a half that I did last night, and for even this amount of detail. Okay, like I won't have my whiteboard with me. Okay, all right. thanks everybody for coming. I want to do this follow up to kind of re-emphasize the importance of what we were talking about last night, and also to bring up this very special concept of how very rich the promise there in Isaiah and Micah is. Okay? All right. Out here for now. We'll see you later. Take care.